Hey guys, it is time again for an episode of Initial Assessment. So let's go ahead and talk first about Supernatural from Dynamite, written by Greg Pak with art by Eder Messias. This book fits in between the first and second seasons, and it's got a cartoony type art style, but I was talking to my friend Brooke a little while ago, and she mentioned that the whole show, upon a time or two, had a cartoony type of feel to it. Not literally, but it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. So here you have Sam and Dean, and they're still early in their adventures, and pretty much a guy is hanging out with his wife, and he was drinking, having a good time, trying to enjoy himself over the weekend, and all of a sudden something came out of the bottle, and he caught on fire and spontaneously combusted. And so Sam and Dean are there, and spontaneously combust is something that seemed to have happened to people a long time ago, back in the Victorian era and early 1900s. It seemed to happen a whole lot. And sometimes it would be simply that you got too close, a lady got too close to a kerosene lamp or something with a dress that had asbestos in it, and up you go. Well, Sam and Dean, or as we normally do here, we've got Agent Roth, and this is my partner Halen. So you were sticking with the references, the classic rock references. And then they meet Effie, who works at the brewery. And that was where the gentleman that spontaneously burst into flames was working. So they agree, all three of them, to go. And then you see what it was that really burned Richie up. And it's a demon. It's an imp, to be specific. And so you've got the banter between these guys. Dean, don't you worry yourself one bit, Effie. I'm kind of a big deal when it comes to monster hunting. You stick by me. And Sam says, oh, God, didn't you? Dean says, what? And what do you think, Romeo? And so she screams, guys, I'm trying not to get murdered by a freaking monster. Now, how do you put that genie back in the bottle? So, top-notch stuff. Like I said, the show ran for 15 seasons, got a little long in the tooth at the very end, a little tired. Didn't look quite as sexy as it had when it first came out way back in 2005. The jokes had gotten kind of burned out. Everything about it. It was just time. It was time to walk away. But this brings that excitement of that first 5 or 6 seasons. What should have been pretty much the whole run of the show, from what I remember reading. It was only supposed to go to season 5 or season 6. So you've got all of that. And if you liked the characters of Sam and Dean, they are accurately portrayed by Greg Pak in here. They're written properly. They have the same kind of jokes. So if you're a fan, you're going to love it. If you were not a fan of Supernatural, I don't know that this is going to get you into it. Or if you got burned out by the last few seasons, I don't know if you'll want to come back. But I think it was an extremely, extremely strong start. So under initial assessment, I'm going to definitely give it A+ and say that everybody who is a giant Supernatural fan needs to read this. All right, next up, we have a quick 1-2 punch of murder podcast. And like I said in a previous video, the whole deal is that you've got people that listen to these murder podcasts. And like this woman here, she's at home. By the way, this is written by Jeremy Hahn and art is by Mike Tisserand. And you've got this lady here who's just bebopping along into her house, listening to one podcast, and then it moves to another one. And all of a sudden, her head tilts to the side, and now she's reading off or reciting everything that she's hearing. And I think the podcast, was called, where'd it go? Dead Silence. Okay? And so, long story short, she loses her control of her body, loses control of her mind, and the next thing you know, you've got her absolutely destroying and killing her husband, and then she wakes up and can't remember exactly what happened at all. But the main characters in this book are Mina, Renee, Josie, Alice, and Blythe. And each one of them, they don't have superpowers, but each one of them has an interesting personality. Mina's a writer, Renee is an executive director, Josie's a librarian, Alice is the boutique owner, and then Blythe is the trust fund heiress. And so they all have their part to play, but they all listen to these murder podcasts that everybody seems to listen to. I've tried listening to that Dr. Death thing a couple years ago, and, it's interesting to me, but you know what? I'd rather sit down and read a book or even listen to the Audible book like I'm listening to Peter Straub and Ghost Story. By the way, to go off on a tangent for just a minute, I have heard through various sources that Ghost Story is one of the scariest books that you'll ever read. I don't know if I'm just jaded because of all my years in psych or because I've got a dark sense of humor. I don't know. It's not doing it for me. So if you've read or had an Audible book or something like that really just kind of grabbed you by the seat of the pants and it was thrilling and scary and horrific for this particular kind of season, let me know. Drop it in the comments below and I will definitely check it out, because I think I've got 5 more credits on my Audible. So if I'll do some research. I'm not going to say that the first 5 comments that I get are going to be the first 5 that I read, but if it's up my alley, I'll definitely check it out. But don't send me any murder podcasts, because I don't want to end up like this book. But anyway, these are all a group of friends, and they're all sitting around, and talking and trying to figure out what is going on with these murders. And then you get then you get the other character showing up, and Nika. So Nika is a police officer, and she is also Josie's girlfriend. So Nika is trying to figure out who is behind these killings and who's causing all of this hazard and death and destruction. And at one point you get this excellent thing where the writer character is walking, and she's walking home, and she sees this guy, and he's got his headphones on, and he grabs this guy's head and just cracks it against a big thick concrete wall inside of a parking garage. And then he turns his attention towards her when he notices her. And so, like I said, as long as that podcast is going, then that person is homicidal. And then as soon as the podcast is over, then they wake up out of their stupor and they're like, oh my God, what have I done? So that's the first issue. And in the second issue, we've got a different set of characters that we start out with. We've got a bunch of guys hanging around in the school locker, and these 2 guys, and they're like, hey, you want to go out? And the one guy says, yeah, I got to stay at home. I got to do this. I got to study for this test. I'm probably going to get a C on it anyway, even if I do study. And have you ever seen a movie or read a book where there's a code word? Well, in this book, it looks like the code word is, it always starts with a call. And so the guy's sitting there brushing his teeth in the mirror, and those words come over in the podcast, and it says, it always starts with a call from Pacific Public Radio and KASH Seattle. This is Dead Sounds, and we're your hosts, Vivi Sue and Gina Kyle. And this kid turns his head to the side, and his buddy's in the shower, and this guy gets yanked out of the other shower. He says, Are you guys in there fighting? Are y'all fighting out there? You know you're going to get in trouble. And about that time, he steps out there and sees his buddy is kicking this guy's brains in. And then he's pretty much defenseless in the shower. And so the guy starts coming after him, and he says, Will, no. And I think we all know what happens after that. Well, the writer manages to throw her purse at this guy and knock him off of her just long enough. And then she hits him again with her purse and knocks his headphones off. And he says, what's going on? And he wakes up, and she screams at him because she doesn't know what his frame of mind is. And he looks down at his hands, and he says, oh man, what have I done? And before he can move, he's in the middle of the street, and he gets hit by a garbage truck. And so that ends him. So you've got a lot of murdering, you got a lot of podcasting, you got a hip group of people here that are trying to navigate this world in which a podcast can kill you, or you kill somebody else, but nobody knows what the name of the podcast is. It's just kind of starting. It's simmering right there on the edge. I figure 2 or 3 more murders, and people will be like, "Hey, what's the deal with what was this podcast that was on their phone?" So, I also give a strong recommendation to Murder Podcast issues 1 and 2. Issue 2 just came out this week, and issue 1, my shop was able to order very easily. So if you guys haven't checked this book out from Ignition Press, be sure to do so. And by the way, I just now noticed this on the back, but each one of these 2 books, it says Unlock Your Story, and it says ignitionpress.com, and it's got, Ignition Press has got a key, and then it's got a key code. And so both of these books have a key code on the back of it that you can go and unlock your story. So I'm assuming, oh, and by the way, Jeremy Hahn has got a streaming platform show called Curious Haunts, and it says Curious Haunts with Jeremy Hahn, streaming now on YouTube and Spotify. So if you like that sort of thing, check out Curious Haunts with Jeremy Hahn, the writer of Murder Podcast. All right, guys, like I said, go in the comments below and drop me a scary story, a scary book I need to read, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to a lot of comments. I'm looking forward to you guys scaring the heck out of me for this Halloween season. By the way, my recommendation to you guys, if you've never read it, don't watch the book. Don't watch the movie. Do not watch the movie. It destroys, in my opinion, the original context of the story. The Ruins by Scott Smith. To me, that's one of the just hands down creepiest books that I've ever read. So there you go. There's your reading material along with Murder Podcast and Supernatural. Thanks for joining me, guys. Hit that like and subscribe so we can keep growing this channel, and we'll see you in the next video.